Welcome to Jets Overtime. Ethan Greenberg, Quincy Enunwa here in Florham Park. We'll be joined by Anthony Beck shortly. Jets fall to the Bills in Orchard Park. Final score 32-6. The New York Jets now 4-6 on the year, losers of 3 straight games. And really a tough game from the Jets right from the jump. Let's bring in Anthony Beck for full analysis here. And Q, I want to start with you because obviously we were watching the game together. Xavier Gipson fields the opening kickoff. He fumbles it on a huge hit from the Buffalo Bills. The Bills recover the ball, only held to 3 points, but it really felt like that set the tone for the rest of the day.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you look at it, anytime you start the game like that, it's always going to be hard to catch back up. Now, fortunately, the Jets have such a great defense that they were able to only hold them to 3 points and continue to do that the 2 drives after that. So, it's tough as a team when you know the defense is holding the offense at 3 points, and then the offense, they just can't score. I think once they got down to 16-0, the Jets realized, okay, well, the offense can't score, so we got to do something different. And that's when you saw something special out there. So it's unfortunate that the offense isn't able to hold up to what the defense is putting out there. So, I mean, that's not really a play usually, as I think about it. It's not a play that usually can wreck the whole game. But when you have an offense that's just not efficient, not able to put things on the board, it's tough. It can really bring down your whole team.
Anthony, in pregame, we had talked about, I specifically asked you, what does the Jets need to do in this game specifically to try to get the offense going? Nathaniel Hackett moved from the sideline to the booth, couple personnel changes in terms of Jeremy Ruckert got a couple more snaps, Jason Brownlee, so on and so forth. But again, feels like we're singing the same tune that the offense again struggled, totaling 155 net yards.
Yeah, I think right now, systematically, schematically, it's not working. It's not functioning, and it's not good enough. And this isn't to point a finger at Hackett, but the answers are not there, okay? When things are going bad, and Quincy has gone through these moments, I have gone through it, when the offense is not clicking week after week after week, you got to find ways to either simplify it, make it easier, or give yourself an opportunity to at least function, to get a first down. The offense seems to me to be getting worse every single week. And yeah, we can talk about a lot of areas, okay? We can talk about the offensive line. I get it. You only have 2 starters right now that are seasoned guys that can, have experience up front. The other 3 guys aren't, and they are battling through some bumps. When you have that, you have to cater to what that scenario may present. Personally, for me, and we'll get into this later, how do you make those changes, okay? What can you do to help your offense function? There are some things you can do. It's not a complete, when you sit in that office and you watch the film and you see things and you start piecing it together, okay? Nah, we can't do that anymore. It doesn't work. We got to go here. Because you can't change the offense. You have to utilize plays within the offense that can at least give everybody a chance to function. Right now, they're not. And it's a consistency thing now. Because every week it's the same. Doesn't matter if you're in the booth. Doesn't matter if you're on the field. Doesn't matter who the quarterback is at this point. All right, it starts in the trenches, and you got some issues there, and you got to find a way to make that work so that you can get those guys confidence. And right now, they're not doing it in the run game, they're not complimenting in the pass game, and they're not able to sustain drives. They are the functionality of this offense right now is beyond the worst in the NFL. I've never seen anything like this before, and quite frankly, it gets frustrating. But you got to find a way, and right now they're not.
And to what you were saying earlier, the offensive line for the Jets right now, heading into this game, it was the 7th line combination starting. Mekhi Becton, who's really been the staple at the left tackle spot for the Jets, he gets rolled up on. He leaves the game with an ankle injury. In comes 4th-round rookie Carter Warren, and Chris Glazer made his first start for the Jets at right guard. And a couple weeks ago, he was on the Cowboys practice squad. Again, I hate to say this, but with the offensive line and the way that the Jets finished the back half of last year, it really does almost feel like deja vu a little bit, Quincy, as this team moves on and takes on the Dolphins on a short week. Oof. How do you get out of this funk that Anthony just said that this offense is in?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the Dolphins. That's going to be a tough one, just off the fact that if the offense continues to not be able to score, it can be one of those games that can become dangerous, right? This Jets defense is really talented, but they cannot do it if the offense isn't able to hold up their side of the bargain. As far as this team, continuity is something that's so important in our offenses, right? And you're just not getting that. The seventh, eighth different combination of offensive linemen, you're getting guys that aren't able to, that don't have the chemistry that you need to go out there and be a complete unit. So constantly you're seeing guys slip through the cracks, guys missing blocks, so that's so challenging for any quarterback that's out there. And we saw that when Tim Boyle came in. It wasn't like it was just a much better offense. It was the same offense that you've been seeing. And another thing about this, right, I think, the Bills are a team that play a pretty good amount of man. You watch their film, that's some of the things that they do. They pride themselves in that. Even though they don't have the same corner that they usually have, they still go out there and they attempt to do it. And they were locking down these receivers at points, right? Guys had people draped over them, right? You had Lazard had one where he tipped the ball to himself. You had Gibson had another one where the ball was tipped. I think it either almost picked or was picked. So too many times guys are running static routes, and all those routes were stick routes, right? So I think I would like to see more motions, right? Giving guys opportunities to get open, because if they can't get open going up against the guy on the line, they need some help, right? And you can't continue to just put them out there and hope that they're going to win, because it's not working on this offense.
And for the Jets receivers, they didn't have a reception until the second half of this game. Breece Hall not only led the Jets with 50 receiving yards, he also led the Jets with a total of 5 catches. You mentioned Tim Boyle. He came in for Zach Wilson in the second half. Let's hear from Tim Boyle, who caught up with Bob Wischusen.
Tim, you're put in a very difficult situation, obviously, today. First of all, maybe the empathy you might have for Zach and the tough sledding that he had today, watching it from your perspective.
Yeah, I think Zach's handled all of this all year extremely well. I mean, you got to think about a guy who went into the season, kind of able to take a deep breath, sit behind one of the best to ever do it, and then, 3-4 plays in, he's thrust back into being the starting quarterback. So I think he's been awesome, honestly. Obviously haven't been around Zach much in my past few years, but just seeing his preparation, he's a true professional, and he loves this team. He loves the city. My heart goes out for him. But moving forward, I don't really know. It's up to coach. It's just every quarterback, whoever's in the game, is expected to go in there and complete passes and run the offense. So I think that's what we're both trying to do.
And the quarterback and the coach always get probably too much of the credit and too much of the blame. 2 players today after Makai's injury that have never played in the NFL before on your offensive line. So the run game can't get going. So the things that a quarterback probably needs to support him right now not there. How hard does it make just to play the position under those circumstances? I
mean, it's very similar to quarterback. I think everyone's expected to come in and play. I think Carter did a really good job stepping in and playing left tackle against really good defensive ends. And Chris had a really good week of practice. And I think he held his own tonight. So I think those guys moving forward, it's only good to get guys with no experience as many reps as possible. But that's the NFL. It's next man up mentality, and we have to be able to step in and execute the offense. And I think Coach Hackett did a good job of making sure we had a good plan going to this week.
And just to be clear for the fans that are wondering, you have not been told what the story is going to be going forward?
I have no clue. That's up to Coach.
Okay. Thanks for the time.
That was Tim Boyle with Bob Wischusen. Tim Boyle on the day completed 7 of 14 passes for 33 yards. Zach Wilson, 7 of 15 for 81 yards, a touchdown. Both of those guys threw an interception. Let's bring back in Anthony Becht. And I want to go to you, AB, first. On when you saw the quarterback change, I assume you weren't necessarily surprised, but just what's your thought on what Quincy was saying? Like, you can't really evaluate how Tim Boyle played because of everything that had happened prior to him coming into the game.
Yeah, listen, I know they were trying to shake things up and get things going. I just think it's more collaborative as far as just one guy. I know the quarterback's going to be the one that gets the finger pointed at him. And quite frankly, Zach hasn't lived up to the expectation in general for the totality of his career. The problem I have is this. Tim Boyle was signed on this football team, guys, to be the 3. All right, 3s don't play in the NFL, period. You look across the league, 3s aren't in the game, okay? So you signed a guy 55 days ago in Trevor Siemian. If you're deciding right now that Zach is no longer ready to play, I don't know if Tim Boyle's the answer. And again, it's not to be disrespectful to Tim Boyle or a guy's opportunity or a chance. Trevor Siemian is the pro-ready guy that has done it in this league. at whatever level you want to say it. So he wasn't dressed today. He wasn't an option. I get it. But, if Coach Saleh is going to make that change officially, I don't think you go to Tim, you go to Trevor Siemian. And quite frankly, on a short week, very difficult to do that, in my opinion. Yeah. So being strategic in game to actually make that change, knowing that, you have a game on Friday with this whole Thanksgiving and the loss and everything, you got to be kind of pivotal on how you want to go with it, because I just don't know right now if Tim Boyle's going to be the guy, even though he knows the system and all those things. Trevor Siemian's a guy that has played in his handful of games moving forward. So I'm looking forward to see the decision. It won't be easy because, pulling Zach to get a spark is one thing, but not saying maybe he's going to play again. I just don't know. I just think so overall, when you look at the offense, we just got to find ways like Q. Perfect example, shifts, motions, three-step game. Let's not drop back 5 steps. I mean, we're not there with that line. Get the ball out of the QB's hands, slants, quick combos, whatever that may be. Yeah, they're in man, but you can win on a slant versus man. You can do different things. I just don't know where we helped Zach. I didn't see anything movement stuff out of the pocket. Even if he cut the field in half, look, everybody, I kept hearing Tony Romo talk about, the line is beat up and Zach's still learning. It's Zach's 3rd year, okay? I don't want to hear that. That's not an excuse. Zach can do things. Utilize his skill set, because running the offense that Aaron Rodgers can run, I don't know if that's feasible. You got to sprinkle some things in to function properly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, when you take a look at this Jets offensive line, obviously very difficult going up against a seasoned Bills defensive line. The Bills had 6 sacks today. And again, the Jets dealt with, again, more in-game shuffling. Before we get your thoughts, Quincy, on the quarterback change, let's hear from Coach Saleh on what he wants to do at quarterback and his thoughts on the performance moving forward.
29-6. Just try to see if we can get something going on the offensive side of the ball. We're going to watch the tape and we'll make a decision tomorrow. Like I said, it was 29-6, and like I told Zach on the sideline, it's not just him. It's easy to point the finger at the quarterback, but it's pretty easy to see. You got missed protections, you got dropped balls, you got missed routes, you got now obviously he's got to get better. There's things that he could have done a lot better, but it's everyone right now.
Robert Saleh said that he was not in a state basically to make a decision moving forward for this Friday or next Friday's game against the Miami Dolphins, whether that be Zach Wilson, Tim Boyle, or to Anthony Beck's point, Trevor Siemian. Saleh was asked point blank, like, is Trevor Siemian an option? Basically said that everything is on the table for the Jets moving forward. When you hear that, Quincy, like, where do you stand on what the Jets should do at quarterback moving forward?
Yeah, I think ultimately, they have to figure it out, right? It's a short week, so I find it challenging to really see what you want to do. But right now, Zach is not competing at the level that you need him to compete at. The hardest thing right now that I see with Zach is that he's really playing the backup quarterback almost too well. The role is to go out there and just not make mistakes, right? But what Zach is capable of in terms of making plays, and I feel like he's playing very restrained, whether that be through coaching, through experience, right? He's been knocked down so many times at this point now that he probably doesn't want to go out there and make a lot of mistakes. But the problem is, as opposed to making mistakes, he's not making enough plays. And this offense just is not good enough for a quarterback that's not making enough plays. So if Zach can't do that right now, you've got to bring somebody else in. Sit him down. Maybe sitting him down makes him wake up again. I don't know. It's hard to say at this point. You're talking about a year 3 quarterback, a guy that hasn't shown up to the potential that he's supposed to be playing at. So it's very challenging to say what goes on next, right? But ultimately, something has to continue to be shaken up because the offense isn't succeeding. It's not making plays, right? It's very frustrating. I know it's frustrating watching. It can only be so much more frustrating as a player to go out there knowing that every third down, it's not even 50-50. you're not making any of them, right? I don't even know what the total percentages of it is, but it's probably 0 out of 30, whatever it is, right? Like, they just cannot convert on third down. They can't even get to the red zone this game, right? They got there maybe once or twice. It's just a very challenging offense, very confusing offense, right? And you want to point fingers, you want to figure out who it is. Ultimately, you just try to pick and pluck different guys and figure out maybe it's this guy, maybe it's this guy, because you just don't know.
And for Trevor Siemian, he's right now on the practice squad, so the Jets would have to elevate him if they were to play him or just dress him for a future game. You're taking a look at the game summary right now. The big number that stands out is the one on the bottom left for the Jets, 0% third down conversions, and the Jets right now converting just 22.9% of their third downs this season. That's the worst percentage through 10 games of a season by any team since the Chiefs in 2009. Let's head back out to Orchard Park, check in with Eric Allen. EA 32-6 final score. The big news that the Jets make a change at quarterback in game. Tim Boyle goes in, Zach Wilson heads out. Just what was your reaction to that move?
No surprise, I think, Greens. This offense continues to sputter here, and we saw that early in the game where the Jets' biggest offensive player, biggest play to date in that game in the first half was on a fake punt. And I think Robert Saleh just wanted to create some kind of spark. Remember, this offense came into this game with 0 offensive touchdowns in 36 drives, so they get the touchdown at the end of the first half, but nothing was happening for this team late in the third quarter when he made the change to Tim Boyle. You got to try to create something. And remember, Greens, this team continues to shuffle their lineups up front. Chris Glazer made his first career start, as you guys have been talking about, at right guard. And then at left tackle, Mekhi Becton's been the staple out there, and he goes out in the first half and is replaced by Carter Warren. So the Jets, again, not enough offense today, and Robert Saleh had to look for anything, and in this case, it was Tim Boyle.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because in terms of personnel changes, Ian Rappaport was tweeting that, maybe Jason Brownlee, Irvin Charles would get more snaps, Izzy Bonaconda and Jeremy Ruckert as well. Izzy ended up with 1 rush for 11 yards. Jeremy Ruckert had a catch as well. But where do you stand in terms of, do you think that maybe the Jets' game plan was just kind of shuffled in game because of the way that it unfolded right from the opening kickoff? Or do you think that this was the game plan, maybe just to slowly work a lot of the young players in?
Well, I came down here late in the fourth quarter, and you guys have been talking about it here early in the show, Greens. The Jets are not able to convert on third down. So when you're not able to convert on third down, you're not able to sustain drives. I'm struggling out here in the cold temperatures of Western New York. But, yeah, bottom line is you get no offensive rhythm, no flow if you're not converting on third down. So I'm sure Nathaniel Hackett, who was in the booth for the first time this year, had other ideas as far as the personnel he wanted to get involved in this game. But the bottom line is the Jets did not have the football enough.
And to your point, the Jets continue to shuffle the offensive line. But for the Jets defense, this feels like an uncharacteristic performance, but it also just felt like that they were on the field a lot as well. Like when you take a look at the numbers, obviously Khalil Shakir had the 81-yard touchdown, but the numbers other than that aren't staggering. It just felt like it was a long game for that group.
Well, this thing started from the outset. You fumbled a ball on a kickoff return. That was the first play from scrimmage, and the Jets defense actually stood up those first couple times in the red zone, and I thought they were fortunate to be down 9-0. But then the game's first turnover, as far as from an interception is concerned, was Zach Wilson up the sideline to Garrett Wilson. Rasul Douglas intercepted that for the Buffalo Bills, and they go in and take that at 16-0 lead on a touchdown from Josh Allen to Dalvin Cook's brother, James Cook. And at that point, it was 16-0.
EA, just lastly here, speaking of different guys in the locker room and being around the team post-game, what's the mood right now? 3 games in a row this team has lost, and speaking of the different guys, how do you make sure, or how do they go about making sure this isn't a copy and paste from 2022 after the bye week?
Well, that's a great point. Listen, you don't have a lot of time to feel sorry for yourselves because the Miami Dolphins are coming to town in the first ever Black Friday game, and that's at MetLife Stadium. So you only got a couple days to prepare. The Jets have a lot of mistakes to correct. But you talk about this being an emotional game. The Jets were going for their first season sweep over the Buffalo Bills since 2016. Of course, that doesn't happen. It's a one-sided affair. We saw a lot of skirmishes out there on the field. I was in the tunnel after the game where both teams are exiting. Anthony Beck knows about that, Quincy Enunwa, and there were near scuffles all over the place, a lot of heated temperatures. The Jets, they didn't play up to their standards today, and the Buffalo Bills, when they were backed up against the wall, they really responded in front of their home crowd.
That they did, and to your point, maybe perhaps the best way for the Jets to move this in the rear view is to quickly regroup for that first ever Black Friday game in Miami. EA, appreciate the time. Make sure to get a hot chocolate, get home safe.
Thanks, Greens, and shout out to Sarah Connie, who's been out here in the frigid temperatures all day. Great job by her.
And shout out to you too, EA, making sure that you handle the cold, even though you're all too familiar with that. And Quincy, the Jets ended up with 1 touchdown, only got 6 points. They went for 2, didn't get it. You're talking about 11 plays, 84 yards, a total time of 2 minutes and 18 seconds in the second quarter. Breece Hall is the guy that got the 9-yard touchdown. But it all got started on a special teams fake. Let's actually go inside the film breakdown. And this film breakdown is powered by Microsoft Surface. And obviously, like I just said, the scoring drive, the only one of the past 3 games for the Jets, really jump-started by Thomas Morstead's fake.
Yeah, absolutely, and it was a great play call at the right time. When you think about these type of plays, it's always a great call because most times the DBs on this side tend to have to play the upfield shoulder. So on a DB usually has to play the backfield shoulder, kind of like the back right here, so that's what they're watching. In this play, they had to play upfield shoulder, so it's so easy to get these guys on this, and it's a great call again. Always, I'm going to talk about the special teams because they continue to show up every week. This is a great week right here where they showed up and made a great play for this offense that helped the scoring drive. So you're going to see right here, he runs an out route. So again, he's got to play the upfield shoulder, so that's why he's so lost. He doesn't know where he's going because he's expecting him to run down the field. Great play call, great timing. First down, now you get an opportunity, a little spark, and that's what was needed in this game. They needed a few more sparks to help them get going. This was 1 touchdown. Unfortunately, they couldn't get more sparks throughout the season. Throughout the game. So going to the next play here.
Well, real quick, on that special teams play, it's crazy to think where that was called because the Jets were deep in their own territory. If they don't convert that, the Bills are probably looking at least 3 points, potentially another touchdown, but really flips the field. Brandon Echols actually stepped out of bounds, almost had a lot more of a run, which sets up the Breece Hall touchdown. Yeah,
you're exactly right? You missed this play here. It's a gutsy call, right? But during this game, these are some of these plays right here where you just have to figure it out. You have to find a way to make a play. You got to pull something out the hat, and this is what they chose to do. And it was a great timing. I mean, again, these plays are hard to lose if you know you're going to have a single outside, and they had 2 singles, right? So they had a single out here, they had a single here, and a single here. When you have 2 singles, it's automatically easy for you to get this play. This guy out here, he has to go outside every time. He has to go inside. So ultimately, whoever's going inside, whoever's going outside, that's where you're going to go. So you went to the guy that's going inside.
A nice throw by Thomas Morstead. A little bit of had some air under that ball to say the least, but it was accurate for sure.
Definitely. Great play call. Great execution by everybody there.
And then that sets up the Breece Hall touchdown later on that drive as well.
Exactly. So they talked about it a little bit on the broadcast. They're trying to double this guy here. Your number 1 receiver. You got these 2 guys looking here with a screen. Screens haven't been very successful for this team this season, but this is the perfect time to call it. Right here, you think you're going to go to Garrett Wilson because he's their number 1 guy, so you take 2 guys to watch him. 2 guys are watching Garrett Wilson here, so now you have an opportunity for Breece Hall right here to go one-on-one with anybody who's up there. All he has to do is make 1 guy miss. At the end of the day, he's got so much speed. Nobody wants to hit him at this point. So it's a touchdown for the Jets. Great play call. great play execution by Breece Hall, and you got a little flex on him right there at the end.
It was very nice acceleration as well. And Breece Hall on the day didn't really get a whole lot on the ground. 10 carries for 23 yards. Really got the sense that Buffalo wanted to stop him. And like I said earlier, he led the Jets, 5 receptions and 50 yards. Also had that touchdown. And he caught up with Caroline Hendershot after the game.
Here with running back Breece Hall. Breece, how does the offense bounce back from today's game?
I mean, it's nothing new from what we've been saying every week. Everybody has to do their job, and we got to be better. So, I don't know. Can have a collective meeting or whatever the case may be, but on game day, on Sundays, when it really matters, everybody has to do their job. So we all got to do our job better.
What wasn't clicking in terms of you guys each doing your job today on offense?
I don't know anything. Everybody's struggling right now, so,
What was Coach Saleh's message to the team after today's game?
He holds the defense to the highest standard, so he never wants them to let up any points. But as an offense, we got to do a better job of keeping them off the field for so long. And I think the time of possession was lopsided by like 16 minutes or something like that. So we just got to do a better job, and everybody has to do their 111.
You guys have a short week, another division game on Friday. How do you guys wipe this slate clean and forget about this one as you gear up for another divisional game?
We'll come in tomorrow, watch the film, call ourselves out. The first thing you got to do is look at yourself and how you can be better, and then take it to the practice field and get better at what we got to get better at.
Awesome. Appreciate the time, Breece.
Breece Hall mentioned the time of possession being lopsided. The Bills held the ball for 36-51 compared to the Jets 23-09. And Breece Hall, he's the first Jets running back, Quincy, to lead the team in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns in a single game, which he did today against the Bills since Bruce Harper, 1983. At Cleveland. So that's something, just a little history nugget there. But it's time for our report cards here on Jets Overtime. Let's bring back in Anthony Beck. Let's fire up the report card. Let's start on offense. Quincy and Anthony sharing a brain. Anthony, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, look, we laughed about it last week, but it's an F. I mean, it's not good enough. It's not NFL standard. It's not a product that we shouldn't be, you're not having a completion to a receiver in a game in the NFL. I don't know if that's ever happened in my career. I played a lot of snaps, a lot of years, and I played with a lot of different quarterbacks as far as first, second, third string. I mean, whatever it may be, it can't happen. And it's not good enough, and it's an F. It'll continue to be an F until it changes.
Yeah, I agree. This is terrible football, and I hate to say it, man, but it's terrible football offensively, right? And so, it's a failure, right? You got to look at it as a failure because you're not doing what you need to do as an offense. You have to put points on the board, and you're not doing that. Unfortunately, right, this isn't a total team call out, right? But the offense has to look in the mirror. What can we do as an offense, right? Because it's not just one guy out there. Again, I'm going to continue to repeat that because I think it needs to be stressed. It's not one guy out there, right? And they're continuing to move guys. Some guys are getting less reps, some guys are getting more reps, and unfortunately you're getting the same product, right? So it's not good enough, right? It's not good enough to play in the NFL. It's not good enough to put out there, and now you have to go on a short week and figure out what you're going to do at quarterback. So it's a challenging position to be in as a team. It's a challenging position to be in as a coach, I'm sure. But something has to change, and you have to figure it out.
One thing before we move on to the defense, Anthony, I'm just kind of curious, like from your perspective, obviously the Jets haven't been able to move the football on the ground, partly because of the offensive line shuffle, partly because if you're a defense playing the Jets, you want to stop Breece Hall and put the ball in Zach Wilson or Tim Boyle or whomever's hands. How much of a benefit do you think it would be for this offense if they were able to muster a little something on the ground?
Yeah, but you can't do it the way they're doing it. It's not working. Okay, it's not getting enough on first down. Guys have limitations up front, but what are their strengths? Okay, you got to find out what they are. I'm trying to save some of this for my new segment, but
Understood.
I'm a tight end. Okay, I believe in the tight end position. We need to get out of 13 personnel. We're bringing too much pressure in the box, and I mean pressure. I mean bodies. Like our linemen can't do it like that. I would rather have less. Less in the box is better, and let's see if we can get some natural seams. But I'll add to more of those things. But of course, running game would help. But you know what? You're not running the ball effectively because you don't have the same dudes up front.
Yeah.
So how do you make it better, or how can you make it functional? That's the key. And right now it's not.
Yeah. It's a great point, and that was a little sneak preview of Anthony Beck's segment later on in the show here on Jets Overtime. Let's move on to the defense. Quincy, we'll start with you, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, so I went with C+, and honestly, man, it's tough to grade the defense. It always is, because the problem is they're forced to go out there on short fields and then defend, right? So I gave them a C+ because they really started off really strong, right? To keep this offense that honestly they felt rejuvenated. You could tell they felt rejuvenated. They were talking about it a little bit on the broadcast, how Josh Allen was making the right throws. He was dumping it to the running back when he needed to. We saw that there on fourth down. He was finding the open guy, wasn't forcing the ball, right? Not throwing interceptions. He threw that one at the end of the half, but we're not going to count that one, right? That's Hail Mary. So ultimately, he played a pretty good game. And so as a defense, it's hard to grade them negatively because they continue to be put in bad positions. If you hold this offense, they field goal, and then fourth down, touchdown, and then 81-yard touchdown. So, you can't win off of big plays, right? Offensively, you have to hope that the offense is going to be able to put points up, 7 points to match those 3 points that you're forcing the opposing offense to. So, I didn't want to, dock them too much because I felt like, they kept this game close.
And Anthony, a little more strict from you on the defense grade.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they didn't play great today. And I think it was a product as the game went on of the circumstances of the game that kind of pulled some guys in a bad place. They made some big plays in the run, the pass game. You didn't get to the quarterback. Turnovers were a minimum. Really disappointed about that.
Yeah.
But
not today. I know you are.
Yeah, it's a product of, I think, the circumstances now. They're not getting support. There's not a lot of complimentary football, and their coach is telling them they have to raise the bar and continue to play at a level that, quite frankly, I don't know if they can when they're going against a team like the Bills. So yeah, even though they've been maybe a little disconjointed, they're still one of the top 8 defenses offenses in the NFL. And that's what you dealt with. So, again, just staying true to technique, staying true to the assignment is good enough to make this defense really good. You got to watch maybe trying to do a little bit more because you don't have to, because you got 11 dudes that can get it done.
And when you think about this Jets defense, just the way that they've played throughout the course of the season, it's truly amazing. And Stephon Diggs, we talked about this in pregame central. Stephon Diggs, up until this game, was the only wide receiver to score against the Jets defense. That was in week 1. Fast forward to week 11, the next receiver to do it was Khalil Shakir on an 81-yard reception where it looked like Sauce Gardner tried to undercut the route. He ends up taking it to the house. And the Jets, again, have not let up more than 14 points to opposing quarterbacks. Josh Allen's the first one to do that today with 21. Again, he had the James Cook touchdown, the reception in the second quarter before the Ty Johnson 4th and 1 play that Quincy alluded to, and then the Shakir one as well. And before we move on to special teams, I just want to say, for this Jets defense, Quincy, it really feels like the past couple weeks, the run defense has been its kryptonite.
Yeah,
you think about Josh Jacobs in the second half of last week in Las Vegas. You think about the way that over the course of the game, James Cook just kind of wore out the green and white, especially on defense. Is that right now what the Jets need to fix in order to gain back its form, or is it just an offense, complementary football issue?
Yeah, absolutely. As I was going to say, I think it's complementary football. I think ultimately it's complementary football. You always talk about this offensively, that you're going to run the ball late in the game because you're up, you're trying to run the clock down. So this is just how it's going every time, right? The second half comes, they start to run the ball more. I don't think, from my own memory, the games have started with the run, and then these teams have just blown the Jets out by continuing to run. Usually it's like, okay, they started to get a lead, they feel comfortable, the Jets aren't scoring, so they're getting the ball back again. So now they can run the ball. It's comfortable to run the ball. They know they can run the ball. It's easy to run the ball. So I don't know if it's necessarily that the Jets are bad against the run as much as they're just getting beat down. This is football. It's physical. And you want to be as physical as possible. You want to make sure that team is being worn down, and the best way to do that is to run the ball.
All right, let's move on to special teams here on the report cards. AB, let's start with you. Where are you going with the special teams grade?
Yeah, I was going to give him a D, but I think the reason why I didn't is because they get a C because of the offense that they provided in the fake. Good job by Morstead, and Quincy did a good job breaking it down. You cannot fumble to start the game. It wasn't a backbreaker. It wasn't a crusher. But again, it just sets the tone, and I think right now this team can't give up 3 points. It can't give up 6 or 9 because the offense is not supporting or making everybody feel good enough that they can. So the defense did a hell of a job holding them to 3, but to come out and drop the ball or fumble the ball, young player or not, it just can't happen. Things happen, but not on the first play of the game.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think the game, so many different things happen. Like that one completely left my mind, right? Like to start the game in that way, obviously my mind went everything after that, right? I was so elated by the 4th down conversion, right? The throws that I'm thinking, okay, yeah, the Jets special teams had an A. But you're right. I think anytime you start the game off in that way, and you could tell that the Jets coaching staff were also pretty concerned. They put Izzy back there at some point, right? So, I put the A up there, and I'll stand on the A. But I think that ultimately it wasn't an A performance. There was a lot of things that could have been adjusted as well on special teams. It's just obviously not playing complimentary football.
The last time the Jets lost a fumble on their opening kickoff, that was 2004, Week 1 against Cincinnati. Just, again, food for thought there. And also on the other side of the ledger, to Quincy's point, the positive, since the start of last season, the Jets are 4 for 4 on fake punt plays, tied with Detroit for the most in the NFL. Ashton Davis had a fake punt earlier this season. And now it's time for what Coach Beck was alluding to earlier, the Coach Beck segment, where we just kind of give AB the floor, maybe make some tweaks right after the game, kind of a knee-jerk reaction as the Jets, again, losers of 3 straight, now heading back to MetLife to take on another AFC East opponent in the Miami Dolphins on a short week. The Black Friday football game, first one ever. AB, just like, where do you go from here? And what are the coaching points that you would like to point out to anyone watching?
Yeah, I thought about that as what would I do as a coach, as a head coach of my team if we were in this certain situation? I'd say, number one, the meeting right after the game to galvanize and keep everybody tight and together. It's really the key moments in that meeting that you really have to strike your team and really get them to buy in, because there is a lot of noise. Twitter, fans, media, everything right now is on your back. The poor play is there. Everybody knows it. But you got to find a way to keep these guys together so when you get to that team meeting tomorrow, you can put together a plan. What is that plan? Number one, after that team meeting, I'd have my defense stay in that team meeting. And I'm going to tell my defense this. Listen, I keep asking you guys to give more, to give more. I need you guys to be firm and strong. Okay, we're healthy in positions. We got really good players. We're trying to figure out on offense. Leave that to me to get this thing fixed offensively. I am going to find a way to get you some support. In the meantime, I need you guys to continue to give me what you got so that in the 4 quarters of game that you're out there, you give us a chance. And that might even be having to score, take one away, whatever it may be. That level has to raise and keep playing at the level that you're playing. Offensively, just on schematic standpoint alone, I relinquish a little bit of the tight end play. I would be in 11 and 10 personnel and spread things out a little bit more. Okay, number one. Number two, I would get my leaders in every offensive room. I would sit them down personally, and I would ask them point blank, what do you think can help us benefit our offense right now? And I take that information to help me come up with a plan to be better for this week coming up. It's a short week. I think you can do a lot of things simply if you're effective and you can move the ball and at least get points, field goals, touchdowns, whatever that may be. But I'm going to lean on some of my core guys to say, listen, we're struggling here, okay? Players are chirping. They're talking to each other. They're talking to their families on the phone. They're pointing fingers, not in maybe the locker room, but some reason, somehow. Everybody's got an idea or a plan. Okay, let's find out what those things are that they feel like is missing, and let me see if I can build a plan around that. And then I'm going to get Hackett to really draw something up that's simple, clean, and effective off of some of those personnel looks in those 10 and 11 personnel and see where it flies, man. Now, quarterback, really quickly with 30 seconds. it's a tough spot because you only have a couple days, and it's not fair to Trevor Siemian to actually be the guy. If I could wait another week with him, I would, because I get a little more time. So again, is Zach truly not good enough to go? Do we give Tim a chance? You probably roll with Tim on a short week, and then you go to Trevor moving forward. That's how I would play my cards with this one, but you got to keep guys tight. You're not completely out of it yet.
That was very well done, right at the buzzer, as Anthony Beck did a little coach speak right there. You know, just a little, again, a little feedback immediately. 3 minutes. Feel like that you got it enough off your chest? You feel good? That was good timing,
Yeah,
or we got to increase it?
You can't do a million things, Q, right? Those are just simple things, really, because you got to find answers offensively.
Right.
And I'm not big enough for anybody to not sit down and talk to my leaders in each room positionally and just get a little feedback.
Yeah.
Sometimes it helps. When you take some of your players' feedback, all right, you make them feel a certain way, and if they see some of that growth and change, you may get a little bit of better feel for some things. But it's on Hackett, man. You're the OC. You got to come up with a plan. That's a suggestion. Maybe they've already done that, but again, it's not good enough. It's not a quality product.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, AB said it all, right? I think I mentioned it as well. It's not quality football. There's a reason why we said it's a failure. So ultimately, right, they got to get back to the drawing board. And this is a tough week to do that. You're not really going to get much practice in, and that's the hardest thing to figure out right now, right? You're scrambling to figure out how you're going to improve this offense. Meanwhile, you have a game on Friday. I hope that they can figure it out, because that's another very important game that they have coming up, right? The Dolphins, a division game, right? Like AB said, they're not out of it, but they're continuing to put themselves out of it if they play like this.
Yeah, a lot of decisions for Robert Saleh, for Nathaniel Hackett upcoming again in the game. Zach Wilson gets pulled. Tim Boyle goes in. Trevor Siemian on the practice squad. Who will start for the Jets in the first ever Black Friday football game? Jets-Dolphins again this Friday. A lot of questions to be answered over the next couple of days. But final score in Orchard Park. Bills 32, Jets 6. The New York Jets on a 3-game losing skid, and now at 4-6, taking on the Miami Dolphins. For Eric Allen, Caroline Hendershot, Anthony Beck, and Quincy Enunwa, I'm Ethan Greenberg. We'll be right here Friday for Jets Overtime, following Jets Dolphins in the first ever Black Friday game.